The Pastor's Podcast with the Reverend Richard Brunton.
Hello, welcome to the Living Hope Pastor's Podcast. Today I want to remind you of the importance of strategy that comes from God. You know, we look at things in our churches and we may make our programs, and we know during this time of lockdown there's been preoccupation with the audio, with the visual, very, very important. So many different ways that there are of presenting the gospel. But you know, the most important thing is being able to just know, how does God want to organize our church? What is his plan and strategy for us as a local church at this particular time? Now, Acts 2 will make it very clear that every Bible-believing church must be looking to prayer, it must be looking to the Word of God, it must be looking to breaking bread, and it must be committed to the fellowship, building up one another. And so whatever we're doing, whether it's Alpha or whether it's some other course of studies, so many different things that we could be doing, our evangelistic services, our programs, it's good to make sure as a church, prayer, fellowship, time to get to know one another, to relate together, to care for one another, breaking bread, never forgetting the cross, the centrality of Jesus dying for us, and then also just that sense of the Word of God. But what we also see is that as the church grew, we have that passage in Acts 6, which we may well have mentioned before, but I just felt to come back to it today. And it was this situation where there was disagreement between two groups of people, one feeling that the other was being neglected in the distribution of food to the widows and to the poor. And we know that the 12 gather the disciples together and say, look, it's not right for us to neglect the ministry of the Word of God in order to wait on tables. Choose 7 men from among you who are full of the Spirit and wisdom. We'll turn this responsibility over to them, and we'll give our attention to prayer and the ministry of the Word. You see, the answer to this situation, yes, they could pray about it, and of course they did pray about it. You could be sure that God's people prayed and just asked God, well, who are these ones that we should present before the church? Yes, that would have taken place, but the important thing was, yes, God's choice, God's people being put in the right place. But it was just that sense of, you can't do everything. You can't be involved in absolutely everything. It's important that people are released to develop their own ministry and to grow into the areas of service that God has given them. This is very, very important. And so the whole strategy of having 7 people who were caring for this situation was releasing the apostles to get down to more prayer and more time in the Word so that they could lead and teach the people effectively. And sometimes, you know, we can be struggling to grow, struggling to see things change. And it's important to just say, well, Lord, how do we handle this? And of course, today, in so many churches, you're handling lots and lots of problems. You're handling people with great poverty and great need, even as they were in this passage in Acts 6. And there are other situations. We have those who are widowed. We have those who are single mums. We have those whose marriages have broken down. We have people who are coming out of terrible diseases. There's all sorts of things happening. But to say to the Lord, who can be raised up to help this particular ministry develop and grow, it's a very good question to ask. I remember once when I was in Ecuador, someone came up to me and said, look, I feel God has given me a ministry to prostitutes. And you feel, wow, that's a great call. And if that's what God is calling someone to do, they will do it very well. I have been with people who are incredibly skilled in handling those with dementia and mental issues. Now, we can all seek to have compassion, we can all seek to care, but sometimes, to find someone who's gifted and who just has a way about them of communicating and getting through in a loving way, and yet at the same time achieving some change because of the way that they handle people. And of course we know there are people who handle worship very well, but wouldn't particularly be that strong in the pulpit. It's good to look and see what are the gifts, what are happening. One of the things I so love about this passage, and would have commented on before, but having made the decision, they're not going to do everything, they're going to find people to serve. Having made that decision, what we then see is this. We see the word of God spread, the number of disciples increased, and a large number of priests became obedient to the faith. So what was this strategy all about? Was it just about looking after people with their needs? No, this strategy was in order that there could be more growth. And that's why it's so important. You're not just solving problems, putting out fires in terms of this need and that need. What's behind it all is that when things are done properly, decently and in order, then there is room for the gospel to continue to touch the unsaved and to bring people to Christ. May God help you in your particular situation to delegate, to find God's strategy, and ultimately see growth in your churches as people come to Jesus. God bless you.
If you'd like to contact Richard, please visit our website at living-hope.org.uk.